Shalom. Giving all praises, honor, and glory to Yahawah BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI, BAHASHAM, QADASH, and double honors to the elders and apostles who rule well and teach well. Shalom to the scattered abroad, the 12 tribes scattered abroad. This video is called All Kings and Rulers Are Set Up by the Most High. Okay? And I'm going to give a scriptural breakdown with real life examples. Lord willing, this is edifying. All right. So let's start off by saying that the Most High Yahawah, right, is the sovereign ruler of all creation. Even the kings, the presidents, the empires, whether righteous or wicked, are raised by him. From least to the greatest are raised by him to fulfill his divine will and plan, and his counsel will stand. All right, so first of all, this first scripture we're going to go to establish the Lord's sovereignty is Psalms 95 and verse 3. It says, "For the Lord is a great God and a great King above all gods." All right, so the Lord is a great King over all the other gods. Those other gods represent rulers, judges, powers on the earth. All right, and the reason why I had to state that fact is because that's pretty much the etymology of God in the Hebrew. It's a ruler, a judge, and we can actually go into it real quick. All right, see, HALALYAM, God. All right, so yeah, there we go. All right, so as you can see, God just means with the small g, it could be small g, big G, whatever. It means rulers, judges, divine ones. All right, so people who are in power, because that's what God means. It means power. All right. All right. Anyway, let's go back. Let's move on. So, as I stated before, the Lord is a great King, over all other gods. And those guys represents rulers, judges, powers on the earth. All right. Psalm 24 and verse 1. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. All right. So the Lord, he controls everything on the earth. Everything belongs to him. The world and all its people belong to him. The world and all its inhabitants belong to him. All right, to the Lord Yahawah BAHASHAM YAHAWASHI. He's omnipresent. He's omnipotent. He's in control of all things on the earth. All the people are powerless without Yahawah. Their purpose at the end of the day is to perform his will, whether their purpose is to be good or evil. He sets them up. Pray, and I hope this is edifying. I hope you understand it, because basically the point I'm trying to make is that no matter who people think that they choose, or the way they cast ballots and lots, everything is already set up, for who's going to be ruled. From the time that they was born, their lot has been already predetermined. And even the evil ones, and we're going to read that in Amos 3 and 6. It says, "Shall a trumpet be blown in the city, and the people not be afraid? Shall there be evil in a city, and the Yahawah hath not done it?" All right, so the Lord controls both good and evil, and this includes the wars, the famines, the pestilences as well. All right. Moving on. And I'm just going to keep moving right along just to bring up precepts to further substantiate this ideal, this truth. Okay. Matthew 10, verse 29. It says, matter of fact, I'm going to read it in KJV. It says, "Are not two sparrows sold for a farthing, and one of them shall not fall on the ground without your Father, And I'm going to read it in NLT. It says, what is the price of 2 sparrows? 1 copper coin? But not a single sparrow can fall to the ground without your Father knowing it. So nothing goes unnoticed by the Lord. Nothing goes over his head. You know, he's aware of all political affairs and other worldly affairs on the earth. You know, he's nothing gets past him. In fact, he controls the political climate. All political climates, you know, he controls all of it. You get that? You smell me? All right. All right, moving on. This is Psalms 75, verse 6. It says, for promotion cometh neither from the east, nor from the west, nor from the south, but God is the judge. Yahawah, the Most High, Yahawah, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI, is the judge. He putteth down one and setteth up another. No matter who you vote for or set up as human ruler over the people, the Lord has it already planned out. This is word to the wise. If you understand, if you got ears to hear, you know, it's pretty apparent by the scriptures that I'm reading. If you believe in these scriptures, believe in this book, then you will understand that. Okay. Moving on. I feel like I'm kind of pretty much going through the same. It's a lot of precepts that pretty much says the same things, and I'm just trying to bring them out so I can really hit it home. All right. Proverbs 16 and verse 33. It says, the lot is cast into the lap, but the whole disposing thereof is of the Lord. So we may throw the dice. You know, that's what casting a lot is like. Basically flipping a coin, or rolling a dice, or anything that requires a choice between 2 things or more. You know, that's casting a lot. So the disposing thereof. So every time the lot is cast, whatever is the choice, whatever is the what do you call it? Whatever option comes up after you cast the lot or ballot, it's the Lord is actually the one that determines how it falls. So this shows you every decision is from the Lord. It's from Yahawah, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI. No matter what ballot you cast, or whoever tries to rig, you know, you see in the news, in the political news, you know, they try to bring out that, oh, it's rigged. You know, they're cheating. Any type of rig or cheating or lying or form of election is all in the will of the Most High. You know, wherever it lands on, that's what it was meant to be, whether it was a rig or not. Those who are in power, who think they rule, who think they will rule forever, are thinking vain things. You know, they think that it was by their power that they are ruling. And let's just read Psalm 2 and 1. It says, why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? So it's vain to think that you can control your destiny, the outcome of how much time you are able to control and have power. All right, it says, the kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against Yahawah and against his anointed, saying, let us break their bands asunder and cast away their cords from us. It says, he that sitteth in the heavens shall laugh, the Lord shall have them in derision. All right, because the Lord is sovereign, you know, so he's scoffing at the idea that these people think that they could just do their own will. All right, in which they think that they can continue forever, like they can, you know, these rulers, these elite think that they are in power because of their own might, their own force, and in actuality, you know, it's not the case. All right, and we see that in Psalms 49 verse 11. This is their thought, their inward thought is that their houses shall continue forever, and their dwelling places to all generations. they call their lands after their own names. The scriptures here is showing us that the power of Yahweh's rulership of all mankind. The scripture proves that nobody is put into power by their own strength and intellectual capabilities. It's not because they're, so mighty, they're so powerful, they have such great influence, they speak well. Well, that's because the Spirit was put on them to be placed in that order. They were ordained to act out the Lord's will. So no matter what, if they think that they have such a high IQ or intelligent quotient or whatever their capabilities they think that they have, or if they think they're superior, it's not of their own doing. Okay? All right, so we're going to bring up some examples. But first, let's read Daniel 4:17. Yeah, this goes for all world leaders, world rulers. Matter of fact, as you can see on this search, I searched the world leaders. So all these people that you see, from every country, from every facet of life, whether they be rich, from least to the greatest, so-called dictators and presidents and pharaohs, prime ministers, all types of powerful leaders, so-called, in this world. These leaders are set up by the Lord, okay? And nobody can take that away from the Lord. His counsel is going to stand. All right, this is Daniel 4:17. It says, "This matter is by the decree of the watchers and the demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth. The Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will, and setteth up over it the basis of men." So this verse makes it crystal clear, that the Most High decides who rules. Sometimes he installs base, lowly, morally corrupt men to rule for his purpose, whether to judge the nations or to fulfill prophecy. Either way, it's all to perform his will. And a real life example of this is the rise of the colonial empires like Britain, the British, the Spanish, that was led by bloodthirsty men who colonized, enslaved, and spread lies. They were all, believe it or not, this was all permitted by the Most High to fulfill prophecy, which, that prophecy, what I was just speaking about, them colonizing and enslaving, things of that nature, that's Deuteronomy 28:68. All right. Moving on, let's go to Romans. This is Romans. Hold on 1 second. Make sure I didn't. Yeah, I did. Probably gonna bring this back up. Let's see. I'm gonna end up bringing this back up to make another point again. But this is Romans 13:1. It says, "Let every soul be subject to the higher powers." So even in the New Testament, it goes into the sovereignty of the Most High, Yahawah, BAHASHAM, Yahawashi. It says, "For there is no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained of God." And in the NLT, oh no, this is the Amplified. Excuse me. It says, "Let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, granted by his permission and sanction, and those which exist have been put in place by God." So you can't get any clearer than that. It's just said it plain upon tables. This is another reason why I like the Amplified version. But basically, all governments, the empires and rulers, whether just or unjust, are in power because the Most High allowed it. No one gets on the throne without his decree. All right, an example of this is in Jeremiah 25:9, when Nebuchadnezzar ruled Babylon and was used by God to punish Israel yet he himself was later judged and humbled. Okay? And moving on. Proverbs 21:1. And it just keep hitting it home. You know, at this point, I mean, I could just stop, but I wanna give an example of like an intricate situation, a case in which you see the science of this happening in past time. All right, but I'm gonna read Proverbs 21 and verse 1. It says, "The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord, as the rivers of water. He turneth it whithersoever he will." Whithersoever he will. The Most High controls the thoughts, even the thoughts and the decisions. So he's the influence, the inspiration. You know, inspiration meaning breathing spirit. Breathe in spirit. All right. So he puts the spirit on people. You know, of course there's order within the spirit world, but he controls the thoughts through spirits, right? And controls their decision making, you know, of the rulers. That's how he's able to confound, you know, these rulers, you know, who get so high and mighty and proud, but really that's just his will, so he can show his power, you know. So they may believe that they act independently, these rulers, even these wicked rulers, but their choices are ultimately guided to fulfill his will. An example of this is in Exodus 9:12, when Pharaoh hardened his heart, but not by coincidence, but because the Most High ordained it to show his power. So the Most High really is the one that hardened his heart. You know, this is why we must fear the Lord, because ultimately his will is going to stand anyway. And these things was written aforetime for our learning, so we should understand the Lord. This is Isaiah 45:1, and let's see, I start at 1, but basically I'm gonna just go give an overview. It's about Cyrus, you know, which was a Persian king during the Medo-Persian Empire. He was chosen to free the Israelites from Babylon. And the Most High basically used a heathen ruler, a Gentile ruler, to carry out his redemption plan. Thus saith the Lord to his anointed, you might as well say his appointed. Does this mean that Cyrus is he was chosen to be a part of the covenant of the Israelites? No. It just means that he's his servant. Like the Lord has power over all people. All right. Thus said the Lord to his anointed, right? To Cyrus, whose right hand I have holden, to subdue nations before him, and I will loose the loins of kings, to open before him the two-leaved gates, and the gates shall not be shut. I will go before thee and make the crooked places straight. I will break in pieces the gates of brass and cut in sunder the bars of iron. And I will give thee treasures of darkness and hidden riches of secret places, that thou mayest know that I, Yahawah, which call thee by your name, am the God of Israel. All right. I'm gonna read verse 7. This is, I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, Yahawah, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI, do all these things. I, Yahawah, do all these things. So the Lord is letting you know that, you know, even though he's the God of Israel, he actually is in control of peace, and he creates evil. So a lot of people would try to limit the Lord's power, even though he's omnipotent and omnipresent. They will limit his abilities just by saying that, oh no, the devil is the one controlling evil. But in actuality, the Lord is the one that he created all, you know, good and evil, darkness and light. Okay, but for a modern parallel, on this idea, how Cyrus, he was set up to free the Israelites from Babylon. So as you can see, the Most High, he used him to carry out his plan. But in a modern parallel, you see during the civil rights era, leaders like John F. Kennedy or Lincoln may seem to act on goodwill, as far as the welfare of the so-called blacks, African Americans, if you will. But they were tools. They were actually just tools used by divine design, not their own virtue. And some people may even look up to these people, like Bill Clinton, and because our people are simple, but they just look up to certain leaders as them. They doing something that is for their benefit, for the people who are in the lowest state. They doing things for their benefit, but in actuality, it's not by their own virtue. It's they're doing it because the Lord sanctioned it to happen. Okay, He sanctioned it for this to happen. So even if it seemed like they're doing something good for you, it's really just the Lord. He just lessening up the blow. Even during the civil rights era, that just from chattel slavery to the Jim Crow era, all these things, were put into place, ordained, just so we can be where we are today, where we have now we have the truth, the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of who we are, because we let the foot off our neck, for a little bit. Now we have more resources and tools to actually be a part of this knowledge increasing. This is Job 12, verse 23. It says, He discovereth deep things out of darkness, and bringeth out to light the shadow of death. He increaseth the nations and destroyeth them. He enlargeth the nations and straighteneth them. Again, He taketh away the heart of the chief of the people of the earth, and causeth them to wander in a wilderness where there is no way. So in the Amplified version, if you see, it says, He removes intelligence and understanding from the leaders of the people of the earth, and make them wander and move blindly in a pathless waste. All right, so the Lord is the one that's making them grope in darkness. When it seemed like a leader, he don't know what he's doing, and it's all to fulfill the Lord's will. The Most High, he's the one that builds up and brings down nations at His will. He controls the rise and the fall of empires, like I said before, leaders, and even economic power. An example of this is the fall of the Soviet Union, or the decline of ancient Greece and Rome. Were not simply political collapses; they were divine recalibrations. All right, let's move on to, let's go to Jeremiah. Jeremiah 27, verse 5. I'm gonna start at 4. It says, and commanded them to say unto their masters, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, Thus shall ye say unto your masters, I have made the earth, the man and the beast that are upon the ground by my great power and by my outstretched arm, and have given it unto whom it seemed meet to be, unto me. And now have I given all these lands into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, my servant, and the beasts of the field have I given him also to serve him. So this is not an isolated event. All right. Every person in power was given that preeminence by the Most High, even from the greatest to the least to the greatest. Everyone is ranked in. The Lord has done it. All right. And Let me read on a little bit more. Matter of fact, no, I pretty much hit the point. The point is pretty much been made. All right, let's see. I'm trying to get some more examples. All right, let's go to Isaiah. This is a good one. Isaiah chapter 10, verse 5. It says, "O Assyrian, the rod of mine anger." See, a lot of nations are used as tools and weapons. All right, it says, "O Assyrian, the rod of my anger, and the staff in their hand is mine in indignation." In the Amplified, it says, "Woe to Assyria, the rod of my anger against Israel, the staff in whose hand is my indignation and fury against Israel's disobedience." So even wicked rulers, they may not intend to fulfill prophecy or divine justice, but they do anyway. That's not their intentions, but they do anyway. Why? Because it's the Lord's will, and His counsel will stand. And they're used as instruments, even when acting in evil. An example of this is the European colonizers didn't think they were fulfilling prophecy when they enslaved the Israelites, but they did. So the Lord has everybody in a trick bag. Those who don't understand the Lord's will, okay? Those who don't basically subdue themselves to the Lord's will. And I'm gonna show an example in 1 Kings of how intricate, how everything is for a purpose, how intricate that He sets up rulers. All right, and you will see like everything is ordained, no matter what. Divine is divine intervention, to say the least. All right, this is 1 Kings 11 starting at verse 14. It says, "And the Lord YAHAWAH stirred up an adversary unto Solomon, Hadad the Edomite. He was of the king's seed in Edom." All right, so the Lord stirred up an adversary against Solomon. Why? Because he started going into idol worship, and this is like the result of that. So the Lord, He stirred up an Edomite who was of the royal descent of a king of Edom. All right, and keep in mind that every situation has a purpose and meaning. Nothing is by coincidence. All right, and even in Proverbs 16:4, the Lord hath made all things for Himself, even the wicked for the day of evil. So Edom, he was preserved, to even fulfill prophecy in the future for the day of evil. All right, so he's the wicked. All right, continuing on. As you can see, Edom, he's being preserved. Right, he stirred up. So the Most High, He stirred up the mind of Hadad. Right, He put the spirit on him. Right, verse 15, it says, "For it came to pass when David was in Edom, and Joab, the captain of the host, was gone up to bury the slain, after he had spent every male in Edom, for 6 months did Joab remain there with all Israel until he had cut off every male in Edom," or so he thought. Right, he thought, but this is you see how things are. It's like a like a butterfly effect. Like this was already predetermined to happen. It was meant for him to not. It was meant for Joab to not cut off every male in Edom, right? Because this was the Lord's will. Verse 17, it says that Hadad fled, he and certain Edomites of his father's servant, with him to go into Egypt. Hadad being yet a little child, so he was a little boy. he was still a little boy. And by all this time, Solomon, he ruled for 40 years. So it's been after 40 years, almost 40 years. The Lord, he stirred up the mind of Hadad. All right, verse 18, it says, and they rose out of Midian and came to Paran, and they took men with them out of Paran, and they came to Egypt unto Pharaoh, king of Egypt, which gave him an house and appointed him victuals and gave him land. See, the Lord, he put into the spirit and the minds of all of these people that actually helped keep this man preserved, from Paran to the Pharaoh, king of Egypt. They all had in hand in the Lord's divine intervention, to basically keep this man Hadad alive for future prophecy. It says, and Hadad found great favor in the sight of Pharaoh, so that he gave him to wife his sister, the sister of his own wife, the sister of Taphanes the queen. So now he was able to reproduce, bear fruit. And the sister of Taphanes bare him Genubath, his son, whom Taphanes weaned in Pharaoh's house. And Genubath was in Pharaoh's household among the sons of Pharaoh. And when Hadad heard in Egypt that David slept with his fathers, and that Joab the captain of the host was dead, Hadad said to Pharaoh, let me depart, that I may go to mine own country. Right? So as you can see, the Lord is working. This is the works of the Lord he made the evil for himself. He made the wicked for himself, right? Then Pharaoh said unto him, but what hast thou lacked with me, that, behold, thou seekest to go into your own country? And he answered, nothing, howbeit let me go in any wise. Right, so as you can see, the Lord put the spirit on this man, like, oh, I need to go into my own country. So now this is a domino effect of how, he was being set up to be a ruler, to be the posterity of his royal lineage, in which Joab thought he had cut off every Edomite. But since Solomon, he fell into idol worship, these things were already predetermined anyway, so it was going to happen. So the Lord, he intricately preserved a certain man for his purpose and for his will through a series of events that was surgically calculated. It's almost as if he knew this was going to happen to Israel. He controls the courses as it is written. He issues forth influence. All right, and I'm gonna get a few more precepts and then I'm gonna close it out. But that's pretty much it right there. Like, that's the understanding that the Lord, he's in control of all rulers, all kings, all kingdoms. He works in the kingdom of men, as it said in Daniel 4:17. And this is Revelation 17, verse 17. It says, for God hath put in their hearts, the hearts it represents to your mind, your spirit. All right. For God hath put in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of God shall be fulfilled. So the end time rulers who support the beast system, the NATO, EU, the global elites, they're under divine control to carry out judgment in the final prophecy. So even though they think that they're the one that has the upper hand, they think that they can sit in the throne, the seat of God's talking about they are the Most High and things of that nature. They are actually fulfilling prophecy, whether they like to believe it or not, or try to. There's no getting away from it. All right, they're in a trick bag. Daniel 2:21. I'm going to start at 20. It says, Daniel answered and said, blessed be the name of God, which is Yahawah, forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. And he changeth the times and the seasons. He removed kings and set up kings. He give wisdom unto the wise and knowledge to them that know understanding. In the NLT, let's see. The NLT, it says, he controls the course of world events. He removes kings and he sets up other kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to the scholars. All right. And I'm going to give examples of various ranks and positions across government agencies and global organizations. So you have, like, even if you're a chief of staff, attorney general, a World Bank president, IMF managing director, a field officer, a chairperson, a surgeon general, secretary of state, you know, from the lowest to the highest, chief scientist, speaker of parliament, mayor, chairman of the board, any of these ranks and positions in these government agencies, these are all powers and leaders of geopolitical affairs. They're all sanctioned by the Most High, YAHAWAH, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI. Nobody ever slips through the Lord, always gives justice. Nobody ever slips through. The Lord always gives justice. Nobody can just go up any other way or go through a back door without him noticing, or dig a hole in the earth and hide. There is no hiding. The Lord literally could have anyone in a trick bag. And for the most part, he's got all of these leaders, in slippery places. You know, these wicked global elites. He got them in slippery places. Even in Job 12 and 16, it says, with him is strength and wisdom. The deceived and the deceiver are his. Let's see. Slippery. Just to prove this wasn't even a part of it, but I'm gonna just prove what I just said. Look, Psalm 73 verse 12. Start at 12. It says, behold, these are the ungodly who prosper in the world, they increase in riches. In verse 16 it says, when I thought to know this, it was too painful for me. You know, so we see that all these people, these wicked people in power, are just living it up, you know, eating bountifully, they're prospering, you know, they're getting riches by deceit, you know, and it could be painful for you, you know. Wisdom, oppression maketh the wise man mad, right? But then reading further on, it says, until when I thought to know this, it was too painful for me. Until I went into the sanctuary of God, then understood I therein. You know, now we consider it. Now, the sanctuary of God is these scriptures, the truth. All right. The truth is the Lord is in control of all these things. Right. And in verse 18, this is what I was speaking about earlier. It says, surely thou didst set them in slippery places. Thou castest them down into destruction. Amplified, it says, surely you set the wicked-minded and immoral on slippery places. You cast them down to destruction. So these people are in a trick bag. You know, they think that they have time to continue they have a vain thoughts, right? They think that they can live forever, that their houses live forever, you know, that they just gonna prosper forever. But ultimately, they have a time limit on everything. Every ruler, you know, from Pharaoh to Biden. Well, Pharaoh just means like ruler, but even the Pharaoh then, you know, of Egypt during the times of the captivity of the Israelites, you know, the pharaohs, all of them, to the presidents of today, to George Washington, to Abraham Lincoln, to Biden, you know, from Caesar, the Caesars to Putin, they sit in their position by divine appointment, whether for judgment, prophecy, or temporary dominion. But the true king, which is YAHAWASHI, he's going to return and rule righteously. He's going to return. He's going to reign eternally, And Lord willing, this was all edifying. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahawah, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI, BAHASHAM, HALALYAM, QADASH, Shalom.